you know, because though they had their day in the sun, I would say that these days Microsoft is just a brand that buys up technologies, but the actual amount of technologies that they deserve to be commended for is so small and so stupidly pushed. I mean, what is so remarkable about C sharp? That you need it over, say, Python or Java or any of the other technologies that already exist. You know, because my experience with Microsoft is they just change the naming of everything. They change the language. That's how they make their money. They keep changing file formats. They change the language. They just have various ways of leveraging you into submission, and you would be so much better off in using freeware in your businesses than using Microsoft technology. They've done the same to the game industry, and it's long overdue that video game machines become free of Microsoft, an unnecessary burden, and just go straight cold turkey supporting the Linux platform. Notice Note that John Carmack for a long time has been in support of freeware open source technologies, and Quake Wars ran on Linux. Um, he had a Linux version of Quake Wars, and you could actually play Quake Wars in Linux without ever using Windows. And OpenGL was long supported by Linux. Not initially, but I mean, not right after OpenGL was available. It took it some time. Became something called Mesa, and things support Mesa. Um, and OpenGL is it's sort of a way of expressing 3D graphics in an efficient manner that can be um, used anywhere that supports OpenGL. Anyhow, also OpenGL had certain stuff in it that would permit you to run OpenGL applications on headless workstations. That means they didn't have an operating system. They would actually go through a LAN and use a server, um, let's say an SGI server that would support that would do all the transformation code, and the clients would do the initial rendering, would do the final rendering of the 3D content. So even whenever it costs too much to support memory and storage for schools that needed lots of SGI workstations for students, SGI had solutions for them by permitting them to use OpenGL based X Windows displays, um, with a Linux server. These days, nobody ever uses Unix or Linux or anything as servers per se. It's just for in the web software, and I guess in some companies that use Linux on their back end. People who use Linux don't use them as servers. They use them as personal computing environments, and which is kind of like a subset, and a kind of it's not really exploiting their full potential, which is to you could take one Linux based computer, or like on a one of my PCs, I would have a copy of Linux running. Um, you could augment the features of that server to offer its internet services to any number of people, and that was how many ISPs survived, was using freeware technologies rather than using commercial technologies, in which case it would probably run out of money and go bankrupt, or having file, I guess, Chapter 11, and it makes no sense to do such things. Wow. Haha. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm gonna go and play the game. There's no way you could use Corba or the technology I was talking about in my Reddit article as gaming networking APIs. I mean, you could, but it's on gaming systems you use stuff that's much more efficient. And but when it comes to networking in a business environment, you don't want to use XML based package parsing and things, because communication is rather inefficient. It doesn't make efficient use of processors. Corba was designed to work with parallel computers, to give you an idea of just how well developed it was. And Microsoft still won out because they had marketing, they had advertising, they had people who knew how to lie to businesses to keep them from picking the more obvious solution, or what would be the more obvious solution. But hey, hey, I'm gonna go and buy some junk. I mean, not buy some junk. Go and play a game. Uh, I will. I can't use Windows because the government always, or somebody keeps hacking my copy of Windows. So I got all the money in the world to support multiple servers of Windows, and every server of Windows I ever stuck, every copy of Windows on any PC that I've had that I put on my network, gets hacked instantly. The only thing I can imagine is the government is trying to see if I'm looking at child porn or something, and and I just see that as an invasion of privacy. If they ever pulled me in court over things of that nature, I would really ruin them. I'd figure out ways to ruin them really badly. Um, it would bring, I would bring to light all sorts of things that people should be concerned about with them. Uh, I wouldn't have any problem with destroying the American democracy and everything with it, and helping people understand that America is not forever. It is going to fail, and it's going to fail miserably, just as every empire has. All you do is you just get enough pride in it, and that pride to get beyond God in importance, even when you have God mentioned. Whenever they forget the source of their morality, that's the time when God makes them suffer. And I sure hope that America does suffer. I hope that it goes down in burning flames, because it has to. It has to fail. And you say, well, that's mean. And I said, well, keep in mind that if you're completely unaware of it, our government has created so much crap. It creates good stuff. It started out good. The ideas were good. The democracy was good. But over time, it has submitted itself to corporations. It created the corporation God, and now is completely dependent and in submission to corporations, and will not. ever fathom the idea of reforming how corporations are are legally um, specified and specialized, and how it attributes human nature or human identity to corporations, that giving corporations the controls of a person without the responsibilities of a person. And if you're Indian, say East Indian from India, and you're really interested in American technology, go take an American class in computer science or something of the sort. I've heard so many crazy stuff about electrical engineers um, failing to develop an education and just fooling people enough to keep them in employment, and on when they're alone with, say, a woman or something. You see that I just completely went bonkers, you know? My brain is like completely gone now. As the minute I start talking about corporations raping women, you know there's something wrong. That's great. Oh, I'm gonna have to save that clip just to show how insane I can get sometimes.